Hello and welcome to Unlock Your Vitality with Monalilianna Journey. I'm your host, Magali Matthew. Here we cover all things vitality, that is living full of energy. From gut health to spirituality, nutrition to movement, we peel back the layers and unlock ways to heal and feel our best selves, one conscious habit at a time. Stick around, let's dive on in. I'm so excited you're here. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the show. I'm so excited today to have an extra special episode. We've got two guests on. This is something new that we're trying. And so we have Manon and Viya. I will let them introduce themselves, go through their story, and then we're mainly going to be talking today about career transition, solo entrepreneurship, what that all means. Thank you both so much for being here. I'm so excited to record this.
Yeah, thanks Magali for having us.
Yay! I love it. You're in sync already. Cool. So maybe let's start with Manon. Tell us who you are, your story. Before actually you do, so the three of us were in a master's together, a master's of social entrepreneurship at HALT in San Francisco. It was like 2015 to 2016. So that's where we originally met. And what has brought us back together, other than being friends, is that we have found ourselves each starting new adventures, businesses, and career transitions at around a similar time. And so we've been doing these sometimes weekly, sometimes bi-weekly calls. We've called it our little girls huddle. And they've been really, really helpful. And so we're going to obviously bring this up to you guys, talk about it, share with us our learnings. But this is where we thought it could be really beautiful to have these conversations and share what we've been doing on a weekly basis together. So without further ado, Manon, tell us your story.
Yeah, thanks, Magali. So happy to be here. So excited. I love your podcast, and I'm quite happy that we can share our little endeavor and story together. So I'm Manon. I'm born and raised on a Creole French island, which is called Réunion Island. It's next to Mauritius in the Indian Ocean. And I like to explain a bit more about it because I feel like this place shaped me in many ways. It's like a very multicultural island with beautiful landscape and a very unique culinary heritage. So it mixes like Indian culture, European, African, and Chinese. And so I think in some ways, this place made me just very curious about the world and human beings in general. So being right there, once I was 18 years old, I just left my island and I went to business school in Montreal and got passionate about, saving the world and social businesses. And so once I graduated from this business school in Montreal, I moved to India and I worked for a microfinance association, which was locally based in New Delhi. And that experience as well was probably one of the most beautiful human experience I've ever had and pushed me to continue to work in developing countries. And that's why I ended up eventually in San Francisco with you two guys doing our Master of Social Entrepreneurship. That was also a very transformative year and very rich in so many ways. And so through that program, I started with one of our colleagues who is from Uganda, a food franchise business in Uganda, in Kampala, where I lived for almost 4 years. I also met my future husband there and some of my best friends. So that place is very special in my heart. And I think in Uganda, I started to have some roots of that new path I'm on now, which is path of food. And now I'm a trained chef. So now I'm a private chef with Monalilianna. And what I'm very passionate about is just to create unique experience for people, like to connect with each other, to connect with their environment and where their food comes from, and eventually, to find some common ground with strangers that maybe you have nothing in common at the first approach.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing. It's so good for just paints such a good picture for people to hear really. Also, you said the roots started in Uganda, but from what you've explained, they really started also, as you're saying, with the Reunion Island, right? With
Mm-hmm.
that having such a mix of culture and culinary differences and
Yeah,
varieties that you're able to include today.
for sure.
Love it. Thank you. Via, how about you? Tell us a little bit your background and your story.
Yes, it's nice to hear Manon's story and hear you say it. It feels like we know each other for so long, like three of us from school. And it's like, wow, it's what a journey we're all together. A little bit about myself. I was born and raised in China, and I moved to San Francisco in 2015 to attend a master program called Social Entrepreneurship with all of you. And after that, I began my career as a startup consultant in accounting and operation. And I helped like founding team to build a solid and flexible financial and operation foundations. And since then, I've been working in startup and tech for 6 years until I moved to Canada 3 years ago. I think during the process, I realized my previous job is all about detect a problem, but I really want to like solve the problem or understand the problem, solve the problem to create the solution. So that's when I realized I might be having this designer mindset. And since I moved to Canada, I have taken the opportunity to explore and start a side project, and through which I found my love and obsession about design. And now I help small team to find a market fit for their product and services. And on the side, I'm also trying to be an entrepreneur, running my passion project with skirts.
I love it. I agree with you. It's so good to hear both of your stories and your journeys. Also, I feel like all the work we've been doing in our girls' huddle is really paying off. Like to be able to be such a good storyteller and like painting a picture of from where we've gone to where we are now. So I love that. Um, Via, talk to us a bit more about the drive that made you make the jump from accounting, working in these tech startups into design, but also you mentioned your company making these beautiful skirts called Unseam. Yeah, tell us more about that.
Yeah, so I think for me, it's a little bit complicated. I mean, it's because there's like reality constraints and there's emotional constraints. And for me, the reality is my after graduation, my parents really want me to go back home, so they decided to cut me off. And I hold a degree in accounting, like bachelor degree in accounting. And when they made the decision, I immediately want to jump into something can provide me stability and provide me some path I can hold on to. I found I was able to like at the same time we were all international students, so kind of our visa is tied to the job. So I was able to find an opportunity that pays me well and support my visa. I think that's allowed me to jumpstart a career that I even for survival reason. I think I started this job for survival reason. And I think things got a little bit complicated when I was a little bit financially comfortable. And that's allowed me to think a little bit more outside of survival. Like, what do I want? What drives me to like grow as a person? I start to more explore outside of the my normal job, and that's when I realized I want to do something creative. I want to do something on my own, and I want to kind of solve a problem and come up with a solution. And and there's like started with a personal problem. When I moved to Montreal, I was really struggling biking with my skirt in summer. So I think that time I already forced myself to notice the problem in everyday life. So when I start noticing this problem, I just kind of want to jump on it and see what can I create from it. I wouldn't say it's a huge leap of faith. It's like a seed emerged from the soil. It's like, okay, this is something I want to explore. And and after rounds of exploration, I decided to make a jump because you feel the difference yourself. Like how do you feel when you're trying to do a job versus how do you feel when you truly love and want to do something? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I love that. There's so many things in there you said. Obviously, for people who don't know, the skirts also have shorts under. That's why you added that, right, element of feeling more comfortable biking with a skirt on. And, it was a huge step for people to be able to buy a product that first was like in your head. And then because you had that problem and then you went out ahead and designed it and then made a Kickstarter for it and created it. And Manon and I both wear our unseen skirts. So yeah, and I loved also that you talked about the reality of needing a job, right? And the reality of at first needing a financial stability, which is something that obviously is very real, and that we are living in this material world and as much as just doing our passions and living our purpose is great without having the money behind it, it can feel, like a strain and unachievable. So it's great to see that you started that whilst having that job as a side projects, and then little by little moving fully into being the designer that you are today. Love it. So Manon, it's obviously the drive, a huge part of it has always been in you, and entrepreneurship has been a big part of you. Traveling and like challenging yourself has been a big part of who you are. Let's talk about this last transition though, because it was also a big drive there's an element of like, I know in between Uganda and the US, you stayed in France for a little bit, explored having a different type of job, also looking at the realities of life before going and jumping into this big drive. Tell us about that and how the transition was for you.
Yeah, I love that question. I love like what makes you jump. I feel like it's something I've been very inspired by, jumping, right? I met my future husband jumping in pools fully with our clothes, and I was paragliding when I was 13 years old. It's like something that I'm very inspired to, but also I felt like at time, at least before, I was jumping in all directions, and it was not always for the best. But speaking about that transition, and I'm glad you mentioned it because I feel it was a very powerful moment after Uganda to be back home in France, facing a bit all my demons during the pandemic, which is a special time that we all been through. And I'm kind of this typical story, right? During the pandemic, I was working on my computer most of the day, and I had a customer success manager role in Paris in a startup, and I was working from Provence in a beautiful village, but quite isolated. And so I will take like an hour and a half break for lunch, as French do, just cooking for me or for the two of us, or if some family was visiting for them too. And that's what gave me joy. And I think that coupled with the fact that I worked a lot on myself through therapy really helped me to understood that I kind of had two choices. I could continue to try to fit in and failed most likely because I never really fit in my life, and at least with some exterior pressure that I thought I was under. And I could continue to do that, or I could on my own story and my own voice and live by my own values, and accept as well to have kind of unreasonable goals, or what is seen as unreasonable and maybe not overall accepted. So I think that really helped for me. That was one of the big drive, was all this introspection and asking myself what I really want. And coupled with the fact that I felt quite uninspired sitting at a desk on my own. I really get energy just by having relationship, like speaking with people, meeting new people. So I just decided to choose what makes me alive, and that was cooking at the time. And so I went with it with like no plan really. I trained at the lowest level in a kitchen in the village next door with like two fabulous chefs who are trained by like Michelin star chef, but were also my age, so respecting me and, really taught me a lot. And so, yeah, I think I choose this big transition because to me, I would rather create opportunity to do what I love as long as it also resonates with an audience, with some people, because it's much more powerful and exciting than any type of security I could have had with a traditional path.
I love that. The aspect of like owning your power and choosing what gives you energy rather than you could have stayed in that customer success role, have that stability that we also talked at the beginning, right? Because the reason I love this is because you have different stories. We all have different stories and what has brought us together. And the way that you made a jump, talk to us also about like the difference, because it's two different worlds, from working in an office remote for a startup in, I think it was in tech, right? To going and working in a kitchen and like the hours that implies, like the change. Also, perhaps, you already talked about a lot of the internal work that you've done, which is beautiful. And in those transitions, there is societal pressure, a view of like what success is. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, I love that. I started to train in a kitchen at 30 years old. Like most chefs start at 17 or 15. So you have to really be humble. And, I'm educated. I've been a manager before, and suddenly I'm becoming nobody. And I have to peel carrots all day long. But honestly, I got so much joy from it. I think one is being in the kitchen, you just focus on what you are doing. You can't look at your phone or be on your computer or think about something else that's what you are doing. Or you can, but you will not be a good cook. That presence really helped with my brain that's all over the place. So I found some peace there. I was exhausted at first. It's so tiring. It's long hours on your feet. You wake up in the morning and you restart all over again, and you come back home very late. But then once you find your rhythm, that tiredness just go away. And again, I got so much energy with working with a team. Like people who in the kitchen are often very real. They don't sugarcoat anything. They are like super direct, super straightforward. They have interesting stories. And I could learn. I have everything to learn. So that was like fascinating for me and very, very exciting. And then also I was customer facing. So we had a very small kitchen. We were 3 in the kitchen and serving maybe between 25 to 30 people for lunch and dinner. So very small restaurant, but like delicious food. And so I would also bring the meals to the customer, and some customer not knowing me would be like, we see you from where we sit and it looks like you really love what you are doing. And I was like, yeah, thank you for saying that, So that's one thing. And then, I also experienced the kitchen here in the States. So now we are serving like 200 people a day or a service. And that's another level. And I have to say, I'm not very convinced about that. At restaurants where we sell like 200 customers a day, like here in the States, it does not resonate much with me. So I also decided to not work in restaurants. And that's why I started, my own personal chef business. And, I can really curate experiences that are customized to the client's needs, where I can bring my care, but where I also have more agency on the hours, on the recipe, on the ingredients I choose. So I think the fact that I joined this career quite late in my life helped me to make choices where I feel very empowered by. So yeah, I'm still struggling today with like, back pain and and exhaustion, but I balance it with like working out, better sleep. I'm not partying after services. Like I'm past that. I'm fine. So yeah.
Yeah. I love that. And I think there's so many important lessons in what you shared for, people that are maybe wondering or wanting to make the step, in that it's not always glamorous, right? To make a transition and to have to, as you said, be humble and maybe start at the bottom, to be able to learn. And then also trying a lot of different things to understand what we don't want. As you said, like, a restaurant for 200 people isn't what you're looking for today. And so having had these different experiences in the transition of like learning has also allowed you to be like, okay, I'm more clear about what I do want and what I don't want. And I love what you said of people like reflecting back the energy that you had. I think that is just such a beautiful indicator that we're on the right path. And sometimes we think about it as success of whether it's like money or different visibility that we might be getting. But that moment is something, so precious. So thanks so much for sharing that.
Yeah, of course. And if I can just add something to answer your question, I think one thing, because you asked if we had some advice, one thing, as cheesy as it sounds, is like to enjoy the process. And I mentioned it to you guys before, but I'm reading this book that I really love, which is called The Pathless Path from Paul Millar. And he said that the most important secret of this pathless path, which is a path that we choose, contrary to the default path, the path that's maybe more imposed by society. So the most important secret of that path is that the goal is not to find a job, not to make money, not to compare yourself to any big metrics, but rather it's to go, as Viya said earlier, to just explore and to find what is the work that you want to keep going and doing for the rest of your life. And so it's being willing to go on this exploration and on this journey of, I don't know where I'm going, but I'm going to find something worth doing and I'm going to build my life around it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. That's beautiful. Thanks for sharing. And so, Viya, on your side, obviously you also come from culturally, there was a lot of pressure and a lot of expectation of a certain traditional career path. How did you deal with more of that, like the pressure of what was expected of you into what you have now become? And then as well, like, what are some of the hardest things that you're finding about being a solopreneur today?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think I want to add what I want to share, also add to my previous question, is kind of interrelated to the drive and what success looks like. I think one thing is when I decide to, there was a time in San Francisco, at the end of in San Francisco, I had a big visa issue. So I had the two options. One is, still try to make it work in the United States, find a job that maybe in the same area I was before and stick to it for the visa. And there's another option is, okay, maybe this is opportunity for me to make a change. And this seems maybe for many people is not a big decision, but for me, when it comes to cultural expectation, being the only child and coming from developing country, I think for many people, being able to make a living in the United States, in San Francisco, in tech, is a huge success. I think my parents has always been trying to convince me, says, hey, you don't have to love what you do, right? You have all the elements of what you need in life. Why don't you just treat it as a job and then do whatever you want to do on the side? So I always have that expectation in my mind. But when I dig deeper, I decide to leave United States. Partially is one is to be able to reclaim my freedom, because at that time I feel like my freedom is not really mine if I'm heavily influenced, tied to something I cannot control. In this case is visa. I basically gave up the opportunity to live in the States because that's the only thing I cannot control, the visa side of thing. And after that, I actually did not tell my parents. I left first. When I arrived to Hong Kong, I was having a call with my mom. My mom was like, wait a second, how come you're also in daytime? And then that's when she found out we're in the same time zone. That's when she found out I left the United States. For me, that's a huge leap because I'm basically rebellious. Like I'm literally doing something my parents against me to do. So, add on to like back to that first question, what makes the drive? I think first the thing here is to really ask yourself deeply what you want. At that moment, I prioritize my personal freedom and my personal growth more than being in the United States, have a good job in tech and earning salaries that my peers back home would take maybe 10 or 20 years to earn. So I basically, so that's, I didn't choose that as my priority at that time. I think second, and to add on Manon's point, is to explore. Like after I left the States, I went for a trip for 10 months. I think I met Manon in Uganda. And the main purpose of that trip is to understand myself, to talk to people that live in different lifestyle. I went to all different countries. There's a nomad country like Indonesia, Bali. There's also more stable people in a stable life country like Denmark or Europe. So I see two completely different lifestyle, and I start to ask myself, which lifestyle do I want? And then you have conversation with like inspiring entrepreneurs like Manon and Natalie. Like you said, I just realized there's so many options out there. Like what comes down to is what I really want. But that's the hardest thing. I think I'm just starting to realize what I really want. But back to the cultural thing, for my parents, now thinking back, I think they do carry a lot. I think because I'm so far away, I didn't have asked them for opinions, basically. I was like, okay, this is what I need to do. My parents are far away. This is my chance to live the life I want. So there are a lot of cultural expectation, and when it comes to money, when it comes to success, but at the same time, we are living in time or in the age that we have the luxury to explore what we want. I think my takeaway on this journey would be, one is to figure out what you can control, what you cannot control, minimize the impact of what you cannot control. In my case, I have to leave the visa legal thing. Like I don't want to be tied to something I cannot control. Second is to experiment and explore. I think that's what I also learned more when I became a designer, is that many times we have this assumption of what we liked, what we want to do, but in reality, it turns out to be not what we thought it was. Or we usually hate our job, or I didn't like my job, but I didn't understand why I didn't like my job. So I think these answers only comes from experiment and explore. And the last part I would be to learn to prioritize and commit. And I think right now I'm very much committed in like a design, a product, and entrepreneurship. At the same time, maybe not very comfortable as I was before financially. Maybe I enjoy, like I take a trip anytime I want. It's not that available. But it's prioritize.
Yeah. And I love what you said about reclaiming your freedom. I think that's so beautiful. And reclaiming your freedom also means sacrificing, as you just explained, right? It means not being able to necessarily go on all the trips that you can and that you used to be able to do, that you might want to do. There's this like common understanding that there's always a price to pay on either side. Yeah. And so there's a price to pay on, okay, if I am staying in this job and making money from it, what is the price that I'm paying? Is it that I am giving up what lights me up inside? Is it that I'm feeling like I'm doing this for other people, and that's really taking my power away? And then here on this side, there is also a price to pay in that you've made this decision, you've reclaimed your freedom, and the price you're paying is, having to make sacrifices where before you hadn't. And so there is never an easy decision. And I think when we think about people making this transition, and you've both beautifully explained in your stories, is it wasn't like, okay, perfect, everything's good, let's go, I have this big drive and that'll do everything. It's taking these little steps, exploring, understanding, whether it's through, as you did your solo trip, or Manon through deep therapy, understanding ourselves better as well, to see which one is the price that we want to pay.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Beautiful. Let's talk about the day-to-day of being a solopreneur. Manon, what are some of the difficult things about it, and how does it affect, this one could be positively or negatively, the day-to-day, whether it's like, we talked a little bit about financial, but maybe also the life you live with your partner. Yeah, share your thoughts on that.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you have some ideas because I called you a few times where things, when things were bad. But yeah, for me, I mean, the day to day, when things are difficult, it's gonna be when I enter into a spiral of like self-doubt, right? I'm gonna start to doubt something about my business, about my decision, and then I'm not stopping. I'm doubting that I'm loved. I'm doubting that I'm worth it. I'm doubting that I made the right decision. And so one way to cope with that is I'm going to call a good friend and I'm going to vent about it and just speak about it, get it out of my chest, and try to ground myself back. But those spirals are real, and they do affect sometimes, my household and my relationship, because I'm not very pleasant to be around. And my partner will often say that I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed with food. I'm obsessed with what I'm doing. And so when you're obsessed like that, it just takes your entire life. And I will say at the same time, the upside of it is that I feel like I gain a lot of respect as well from my partner. At first, it has been a bit difficult to see me doing my own thing, starting from scratch, not earning as much as we both wanted. And in terms of, again, day-to-day life, we live in a one-bedroom apartment and we can't host people much, something we love to do. On the other side of things, we might live a bit more simply, but if we want to see our family who live abroad, we can afford it because we save money and we are very intentional about that. So there are trade-offs for sure. But again, in our relationship, I feel like saying that, me being true to myself, sacrificing things, but sticking to my obsession really help us grow as a couple. And I just feel, again, more respected. And I feel like John really supports me all the step of the way. If it's sometime to remind me that what I'm doing is great, or sometime to remind me that I should focus a bit more, So, you just have to be ready to be very vulnerable with your partner, and that he or she or they are going to see the full spectrum of who you are, and you might uncover some of the parts of the spectrum as you go, because this journey is just unfolding so many truths that I personally didn't know before. And so,
Yeah. I think what you said is, to me, the way that I describe it often is like when you're, especially a solopreneur, you just take so much of it home a lot of times because you're doing it from your home, but also it's not a place, it's not work that you're like, okay, cool, I'm clocking out at whatever time and then letting that go. And so I think being able to find, if your partner I know John is super entrepreneurial as well, but if for somebody listening, their partner might not understand that, I think finding ways to express and explain it. And then the other way around, setting boundaries of if it's too much in a house. I had that experience with Raul where our house became a warehouse before a camp for one of his camps. And we talked about it, and I have the understanding and the compassion because I've been an entrepreneur before. And also there's a limit, and continuing to do that year after year would harm our relationship. And so that's where we have to set boundaries and be like, okay, no, we know, we understand, and this can go on for, this amount of time, but then we need to find other solutions. So yeah, continued trade-offs for sure. Let's talk about, on the other hand, and let's start with you, Viya. So we talked a little bit about some of the things that are difficult, and obviously if you have things you want to bring up there. And also, what are some of the ways that you stay motivated, ways that you take care of yourself? What is, whether it's a routine or just a few things that you do to keep going?
Yes, I think for solo entrepreneurship definitely has brought me a new perspective in my everyday life. There's a good and bad. Maybe I'll continue with some challenging part that I have. One is there are two things I'm trying to get better. One is keep it focused. I feel like as a solo entrepreneur, we constantly have many things we need to take care of, sales, business, content. There's so many things. And I definitely struggled with prioritization and focus. The second thing I'm trying to get better is to ask for help. I think this is including ask for help from friends, asking help from my partner, and delegate some stuff. I'm still trying to get better at it. I think both of you are better than me at this. And some good part that I noticed is my energy shift. Like, I actually got this from my partner. So one day he was saying, I do see the difference. Before I was at a job, every day I come back and say, this is so, I hate this day. Something didn't go well. This didn't go well. I try to find many excuses on my job. But now, even though financially it's not as before, but every day I just feel so great. Every day I just feel so good. It was either I learned something new, I tackled a new problem, I talked to a new person, I made a new progress on certain things. So the energy shift is a big thing. And that actually led me to notice second part is I started to see work and life as more of a dance than a balance. I noticed now I can work until 10 p.m. I still feel energized. Before I would actively seeking a stop or balance or hard deadline, have to stop by 10. But now I do feel I'm energized even though I might be overworking. It doesn't mean burnout doesn't exist. Biologically, I cannot keep working nonstop. I do feel the burnout, but I feel more as a dance. Something I can maneuver. Okay, today I worked energetically for 10 or 12 hours. Okay, I noticed that. Maybe tomorrow I can shorten this, but it's by choice. I feel this conscious choice of the state of my work gives me so much freedom. Yeah, and I think how do I keep myself motivated? I started to write more, and also not only long form and also short form. I started to take notes. I feel it really helps me to clarify my own thoughts and force me to listen better. And also our sharing things with you two on regular basis, having this community, really helps me motivated for sure.
Yeah. I love what you said about that energy. Again, it's something that's come out in both of you. And I think that this also applies if people are listening who have no desire to become an entrepreneur, right? But in their job that they're feeling of knowing when it might be a time for a transition or for changes to happen within whatever system they're a part of. And so I just wanted to mention that. And it doesn't have to be quitting everything and becoming an entrepreneur. This is obviously what it has meant for the three of us and what we are supporting each other in. But it can look different for everybody. And I loved the things that you said about, ways that you're taking care of yourself and staying accountable. What about you, Manon? What are some, you mentioned before, like working out and calling a friend. Is there anything else that helps you stay motivated and focus on self-care?
Yeah, I mean, one thing I really started this year really helped. I mean, two things. One is like, no matter how late I go to bed the day before, because that's just a reality of my job. I go to bed late. I'm going to wake up at around the same time, do my dry brushing in the morning, some sort of movement, and then go on a walk with my partner because sometimes we don't see each other on weekends or on the evenings. So this moment in the morning, and just had a little normalcy, in the chaos really helps just to feel like, okay, I got this. Another thing that really helped is reducing my consumption of alcohol and coffee, because I just realized that both were on the surface are supposed to keep you going and motivated. But for me, I think they were big causes of my anxiety. So being aware of that, and because I'm so dedicated to my path, I was like, okay, I stopped coffee and I reduced alcohol. And then just the last thing I will say about just how to stay on that path and motivated is despite all the doubts and all the hard moments, is knowing deep inside that I got this and I will be okay and I will find a way. And I think we all have that inside. Is either we can tap in or not, but if you can, just do it, because that's very powerful to keep going.
Yeah, it is. I love that you mentioned the walk with your pup and your partner. I think sometimes people think self-care or ways to stay connected has to like look grandiose. And making this simple effort on a daily basis is the fact that it's consistent and also that it's available and it's not like this huge thing that feels out of reach is really special. I love that. So one big thing that has, we already alluded to it, but brought us together is this little girls huddle that we created. If I think of the questions for myself of what do you think or how do you take care of yourself as a solopreneur, but also how do you stay motivated, 100% is having people that can help you stay accountable, but also you talked about self-doubt and you've both talked about not knowing and not being sure. That can remind you also when in the moments where you're like, I actually don't know if I should be going this way. Or I've had moments where on the girls huddle, I'm crying because I'm like, I don't know if this is a good idea or if I'm going on the right path. And having the support there, even though we're not at all in the same industries, right? We're doing three very different things, but we're able to kind of be mirrors for each other when the other ones forget. And so very briefly, for those of you listening, what the Girls Huddle looks like is on a generally weekly basis, we kind of go over like a little check-in since the week before and then what we're going to be doing for the next week. And sometimes it's like at the beginning, it was, I think, more structured because we all needed more structure of like, okay, we're going to work on our pitch and we're going to work on our product market fit and all these things. And then it became now a little bit more flowy, I guess, or open, also because the three of us have very different needs and are at different stages. And so it's been more like, okay, these are the things I'm working on and this is what I want to work on for next week. And then we might exchange ideas or help each other brainstorm. But that's kind of what it looks like. So I'd love to ask both of you, what are kind of your key takeaways of being in this huddle? Why do you think it's also important as we are in different industries? Let's hear just kind of last thoughts. And let's start with you, Manon.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, I kind of kept it for the end, but of course, this girls' huddle kept me motivated. But we are not in the same industry, but we are in the same human mess. At the end of the day, we are facing the same fear, having the same aspirations, same dreams on a certain level, right? And I think to me, that's so valuable to be like, okay, I have my girl, they have my back, right? And I think that's what we do for each other. We kept each other accountable to be the best version of themselves, how cheesy it sounds, how cheesy as it sounds. But I think it's very inspiring for me to see that you two are walking toward the same direction as me. And so I'm not totally crazy to do it. And then, we are in very different industry, but you still have very valuable insight and advice. How can I market this event? How can I tell my story? What dishes can I do? Because you know me, right, over time. So, yeah, I mean, I'm always looking forward for those calls, and I'm always just very energized afterwards. So, yeah, thank you guys for being on this journey with me.
Thank you for being a part of it, to both of you. Viya, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, thank you both for sure. I think what's amazing about the Girl Huddle is we came from such a different roots, and we also have similar backgrounds since 2015. All of us are familiar with social entrepreneurship, startup, and finding our own path, traveling, multicultural, and now we are in 3 different directions. But at the same time, there's so much sharing in knowledge and perspective. I think that's very unique, and also the great idea always comes from like the overlapping of different industry, different background, different perspective. So I definitely appreciate that a lot. Also, the fact that every week we know we have somewhere to go to and to share our weekly struggles, knowing that sharing also can help each other out. So yeah, overall, it's definitely a big motivator for me to hold myself accountable for sure.
I think to add to what Viya said, it does help us to stay on that pathless path and not following. If I didn't have you guys, I would probably feel the pressure to fit again, right?
Yeah, we all know each other since a long time ago. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, I think that aspect definitely adds. We've also seen, our master's was like 7-8 years ago now. So we've seen a lot has happened since. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. But it's been beautiful to see where it's led us. And it's something I also see. I mentioned this to both of you, that as I went through this transition, I think also becoming a holistic health coach and focusing on different aspects of ways I can help others and help coach others. Naturally, it's come in that women have come for coaching for career transitions or like for help in this way. And I think it's often because we're such a reflection of once we're, in the path that we want to be in, we can just see it. There's so much light that comes from that because we're feeding, as I like to say, our vitality or our energy from within. So it's been really beautiful to watch both of you do that and to be helping each other walk together along this way.
For sure.
And hopefully we can do one of these girls huddle in person, but we're very grateful for technology.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. We'll do a little rapid fire and then wrap it up. I'm just going to pick one for each of you so that we can do all of them. I will do this one to Viya. How do you unlock your vitality these days?
Drink detoxing juice in the morning and go for a run.
Love it. Manon, what are you saying no to these days?
I'm saying no to clients that I don't want to serve.
Love it. Viya, what's on your nightstand?
Books, Kindle, my watch, and my hand cream.
Love it. And then Manon, if you could go back in time and give your younger self a piece of advice, what would it be?
I will tell her, hey Manon, you have to own your craziness and own your uniqueness and do not try to fit in. It's not worth it.
Love it. Amazing. Thank you both so much for your time, for doing this together. It was such a pleasure to have you on this podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you, Magali. So happy to be here.
All right, guys. Bye and see you next week.
Yeah.
Bye.